Anyway, we'll now go to Mr. Johns for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you both for your testimony. And I also do want to give a shout out to Benjamin Berman, who represents Canada Post on Vancouver Island. He's helped us navigate some very difficult and challenging times. Ms. Fortin, I'd like to ask about Canada Post's Indigenous and Northern reconciliation strategy, specifically the commitment to hire and retain Indigenous employees. And so, basically what lessons has Canada Post learned about community engagement and working with elders to make sure that First Nations, Inuit, and Métis are the beneficiaries of investments in their communities? And in terms of numbers of employees, do you have any idea of how Indigenous people have been hired since the strategy was initially introduced?
Okay, that's lots of questions too. So, I'll go back to the community hubs as an expression of our desire to do better, and not just do better in our own terms, but to do better in terms of what the community needs. So in both of those communities, we've invested a lot of time with them to understand what their needs are and to not have a cookie cutter approach to what the offer will be and how we will offer it, but to have something that's relevant to them and to what they need. So that's the first expression of that. In our Indigenous strategy, I've said before, we want to be a positive force for change. That includes how we will evolve our Indigenous strategy. The first evidence of that is we were the first Crown corporation to adopt a reconciliation strategy in 2020. Mm-hmm. We have set aside $1 million to improve postal services in Indigenous communities. We are always responding to...
Okay. I'm running out of time. I'm looking for numbers, how many employees, have been, do you have any idea? And also you talked about services for Indigenous and rural and remote communities. Postal banking seems ideal. And you talked about the success of it. Why aren't you doing it?
So on the numbers, we do have numbers and ambitions on how we want the representation of Indigenous communities to increase in our workplace. I don't have the specifics with me, but I certainly will make sure that our teams provide you with that information. In terms of procurement, I do have a number. We have changed our procurement practices to ensure that 5% of our purchases come from Indigenous businesses. And we have, it's not related to recruitment, but we're quite proud of it. We have made a commitment to have annually in our stamp program a Truth and Reconciliation stamp starting